diving into 3 beautiful and very useful studies by Fernando Sor. From his Opus 6, the numbers 6, 9 and 10. A bit of context before we start. These etudes belong to the first opus of studies Sor ever published. The complete opus consists of 12 pieces composed and released in London between 1815 and 1817. This opus, along with the following one, Opus 29, contains some of Sor's more technically demanding etudes. Later in his career, he composed many much easier studies, largely to meet the demands of the market. Sor was reportedly frustrated that the public preferred the simpler pieces, while the more serious, challenging works received less recognition. In today's lesson, we will focus on practicing thirds, sixths, and octaves. For both string players, so violinists, violists, cellists, interval practice is a standard part of daily warm-ups. But for guitarists, structured interval work doesn't always find its way into our regular routine. These etudes are a great way to change that. They turn what could be dry mechanical interval exercises into something far more musical, engaging, and rewarding to practice. Alright, let's break them down one by one and explore what each etude has to teach us. So let's first tackle the one in parallel thirds, and that's number 6 from his Opus 6. So what you will see when you first look at the score, it's the key signature, it's A major, allegro as the tempo indication, it's in 3/8, and it's always in intervals of parallel thirds. So let's first play through the melody in the beginning of the etudes, just so we get the sense of what we actually have to do here. I use the funky fingering there in the left hand. You can use whichever you like, just so that you get to know the melody a bit better. So what we see here essentially is just a run through of the A major scale, and in the lower voice, in the middle voice, basically the A major scale with one B sharp there as a passing note, and then it goes on with the notes from the actual A major. Now let's get into the fingering of this. So at the beginning you have the option to start either with 2-1 or a barré. I prefer personally to start with 2-1 so that I don't have a barré from the beginning. I want to make it a bit easier for my left hand. So I start with 2-1, and then I stay on the second and third string. You can do also this. What I do is here I'm with 3-4, and then I go to the second and first string with 2-1. Let's go until there. So you have first that option that I just played, or with the open string. So it depends what sound you like more, and also what feels better for your hand to keep it as legato as possible later on. Let's do it once again and keep going. Basically, when we're going upwards, I stay on the second and first string from this G sharp and E. There's not much more that you could do. And I prefer to use 1-2 and 1-3 rather than 2-4. That's where I feel more comfortable with. So once again, going in the ascending motion. the string a bit longer. So what I mean is, here I sometimes feel myself when I'm playing it in a faster tempo that the second finger stays on the string. And now we go the descending way. In the descending way, that's for me more difficult than ascending, because we have a couple of these switches where it's a full step switch, shift. This one is a half step, so it's fine. This one too, full step. And this one also. Now about the fingering here, I stay on the first and second string until the end, and here I use 3/4 to reach the first position, and then I switch again in the repetition 2-2-1. So I just slide and it's very comfortable for me. You could choose the option to use the same fingering that you did when you were doing it the ascending way. That would be. But here I came to a halt, kind of. I couldn't figure out what to do here. I didn't want to jump with the first finger, so that's why I stayed on the first and second string and reached the first position that way. Now it repeats once again the same thing, and then we have, before we had always in the bass A, always repeating as like kind of an Orgelpunkt, we would say in German. Organ point, like a lying the same note in the bass, and then we have D, E, A. And now in the second part, we have that melody in the upper voice, and we have with the lower voice and middle voice the parallel thirds. Here I stay in the position, then I do 2-1. I slide with 2-1, and then 2-3 to keep the E string open, because it's a separate voice. Then I have the bar A. I move the bar A. Here I sacrifice the B. I can no longer keep it. And now, in this bar, I use a kind of modern fingering. I don't think that Sor would use this. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think he would. So I play the E open string and G sharp on the second string, and then B sharp. And we're back. And I play the last chord of the first part on the fourth string, the G sharp. So once again, slide, 2-3, bar A, slide, and then second finger, slide. We're in the seventh position, open string and G sharp. And of course you can keep this one a bit longer. Want to keep it the whole time, like until the end of the bar, it's possible to do here 1-1, or even to slide. Now let's tackle a couple of things here. First, the right hand. Here I would play, if I were to perform this, I would play PIM almost the whole way through, and then in the second part also using the A finger for the melody. But the thirds almost always with PIM. What I want you to practice though at home because it's a good way to practice this, it's also with PMA. Because we do a lot of it with IM, and this is a nice way to practice also MA, and for it not to be boring, right? Not just on open strings. Then you also have the possibility of making it even more challenging for yourself and doing PIA in the right hand. Which will feel weird at first because it's on two adjacent strings, right? But it's also, I mean, I'm not saying that you will play with this fingering if you were to perform this piece. It's just to try it out, try out all the possibilities you can, and then you make them good, right? You make them as comfortable as you can, and then you opt out for the one that feels most natural and comfortable if you're doing this for a performance or even just playing it for yourself. In the left hand, parallel thirds, especially in a faster tempo, can be very tricky. So there are a couple ways that you can practice this. You can practice this with preparation always, or staccato, so to say. Okay, so there's always a moment of preparation in the left hand, and then you pluck the strings. So the left hand moves before the right hand. Obviously, do this at a very slow tempo where you can control everything and where you can be aware of actually what notes you need to press with which finger, because this is crucial for a piece like this and for parallel thirds, that you really, in a slow tempo, teach your fingers where they have to go to which position and to which note. Also, you can divide it in parts, right? So you practice just that until your fingers learn it, and until also your brain learns it, which finger should press which note. Then, once you've done that, you can practice it with different rhythms. Of course, it goes for everything that they say, how you can practice it, that you do it first in smaller parts and then in bigger ones. Now, with different rhythms, here we have always a group of 3 notes. So it would be very uncomfortable for us to do, let's say, to do dotted notes with groups of 2 notes, right? So do dotted notes with groups of 3 notes. And first you have the rhythm of da 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 da. And so on. Obviously, do this at a much slower tempo. For example, or even slower if you need to. Then, the other option is to put the dot on the second note. So first option was with the dot on the first note. Now we have the dot on the second note. So now it's ta 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 ta. Option, which is that you put the dot on the third note. So now it's ta 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 ta, short, a bit longer, and the longest one at the end. You see, now I didn't quite get that one, so I'm going to play it once again a bit slower. The next option with the rhythmical variation you have when you have groups of 3 like this is doing kind of 8th note and 2 16th notes. So long, short, short. And obviously the other way around. So short, short, long. You can also do a syncopation rhythm. This kind of rhythmic variation practice will make you practice a fast transition between different notes. So always different when you're doing a different rhythm, and it will help you also discover your problem spots in these shifts, because we need to be very, very careful and precise with these shifts, because they are not shifts like this, right? They happen one after the other, and it's always a small shift, so it's very easy to go a fret or 2 away from it, right? So that's why we were doing all these practicing slowly, practicing in parts, and practicing with different rhythmic variations. Now, for me, as I said, the most problematic part was the descending part, and I spent a lot of time practicing that, also in parts. So I did. So I always connected it with the first note of the next bar. And I tried to get faster than, of course, first when it worked out in the slow tempo. And as I said, what makes it difficult is this transition, this shift of a full step. This one. And then this one. Now when we're talking about a musical standpoint, it's pretty obvious what you have to do with the dynamics, right? So you follow the line. As you go in ascending way, you do a crescendo, and when you go descending, you do a decrescendo. So you get louder and you get more quiet going back. I do a couple of these legatos, slurs and slides in the second part. You don't have to do it, I just really like how it sounds. It's not written here from Sor or anything. Now you can also, to make it a bit more interesting, because this part does repeat, you could choose to, in the repetition, cut the basses short. It's then that you cut the thirds a bit. Just an idea of how you can make the repetition more interesting if you would want to. If you want to play it completely the same, that's also fine. So now about the tempo. What is allegro actually? What would allegro mean it's for this etude? I would choose a tempo around maybe 100 BPM for a dotted quarter note, 110, somewhere around there. If you're able to go faster, by all means do it. It's definitely, it can be a lot of fun, but it's not a presto really. Okay, it's an allegro, and an allegro is not super fast. So that could be like an end goal tempo for this study. Now let's move on to the study with the interval of the sixth, and that is study number 9. So we have the low D, don't forget to tune, and on the score it also says andante agitato, which means like an agitated andante. So it's not super fast, but there should be this feeling of uncalmness, right, of agitation, and he shows it really with the way he shapes the melody, which we will see in a bit. Now with Sor and sixths, actually if you've taken a look at his method, he does talk a bit about the thirds and sixths and how he would finger them, also in which way on the guitar, and usually the interval of the sixth, it's always on 2 strings on 2 non-adjacent strings. So there should be a string between them that you're not pressing, right? So in this case, we start with 6th string in the bass, and the interval of the 6th is on the 4th and 2nd string. Okay, so that should give us an idea about fingering that comes later on, which I will show you. But let's start from the beginning. So this is very straightforward. So we stay in the first position, and here I start with 3/4. For me, it's very comfortable, and then I do 1 2. That's why I talked a bit about how Sor would do the fingering for this. I think he would do it like that. But when you play this later at a bit of a faster, agitated tempo, if it doesn't sound, if you don't like how it sounds, if it's like too choppy to make that quick switch to this position, you could also do option, and you can see maybe before you can choose whatever you could do. Let me see, going from bar 2, you could do 2 3 and then a barré and slide with the barré. That could also be an option, or to go to the barré first there when it's B flat and G. Or you choose the first option, sorry, wrong bass, and you play it like that with the shift. And now on G sharp, I use my second finger. This agitated feeling for me is, as I said, the melody. It's always like getting to where it should get, where you feel like it should get, but going back, you know, it's always this push and pull kind of thing. And also, what for me creates, again, this agitation is kind of the bass. In itself, not so much, but it always comes, it doesn't come on the first note of the mini phrase, but kind of in the second. So if you were to play, maybe I would think, you could phrase it in different ways. You could do, and then, and so on. Now, what for me also creates that agitated feeling is also the placement of the bass notes. So it's always in the first and then the last quarter of the bar. In the last two bars there, right before the repetition sign, I would play this with the fourth finger on the fifth string in order to have the fourth string free for this and that I could still hear the D minor together. So I wouldn't do, because then I stop the D, right? If I were to play this on an open string, I would stop the D. You could also put some arpeggiation here and there to emphasize something. Maybe in the beginning I would start. On the moment, and don't take it too fast. Maybe this tempo right now was a bit too fast. It's still andante, but kind of an andante, I don't know, an agitated andante is exactly how he writes it. Andante, but it's like something's burning under your feet. Okay, that's what it feels like for me. Like we get to a certain point, there's like the bass always at the beginning, the lowest bass always at the beginning of the bar, but then it goes on, you know, you feel like, oh, I'm grounded, but you're not really grounded. It continues going and going back again with that push and pull. That's the thing with this, with the beginning of this study. Other than that, there aren't many technical issues. We just addressed this one, this shift. You have the option to do that or to make it even more legato. Now, let's take a look at study number 10 in octaves. And when you look at the score, you will notice one thing. So it's in octaves throughout the whole thing, in 16th notes. And then there's the ending where he changes the time signature. So we started in 4 quarters, and then it's 3 quarters, maestoso, and in chords. And if you play the chords, probably you will recognize it. recognize it as the British national anthem. So there's no real explanation. I tried looking for it and tried reading essays and pieces on biographers of Fernando Sor and researchers, but there wasn't any explanation on why this theme is in this study, after this study, But in the time of publication of these studies, of this opus, Sor was living in London, so this could be an homage maybe to, and it was dedicated to one of his students, so this could be maybe an homage to one of them, or someone asked him to write it down, to transcribe it, or to arrange it. Could be. We don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think, why it's there, or maybe you have the information on why it's actually there. Now, let's start with the octaves. So this one, you could practice first without the arpeggiation of the octaves, so playing them together. The fingerings, because on some places, in a lot of them there's many options for it, but on some places you could maybe make it a bit easier for yourself and not do all the shifts. So let's start from the beginning. At the beginning, start in C major in the first position, nothing crazy. And here I switch to the second position, so after then I prepare my first finger on A. I again use the first finger there, and I slide to A, so chromatically, and go back. Now here you could use the open string and make it a bit easier for yourself. And more legato. In the next bar, you could I employ my second finger to press the G. How it sounds when I play it, when they jump around with the same finger. I prefer to do. So I jump with the first finger. But at least I connected this and then the bass. G, and with the first finger here because I don't want to jump around, and then I do shifting by substitution. So there was the first finger, now I do it with the second. one string to the other with the same finger. It's a very, very nice study. I like it very much. I like the melodies that he's built into these octaves, and also the chromaticism and everything. It's super nice, super fun to play. Also, it's moderato, so it's not very fast, but keep in mind he did notate it in 16th notes, so it's also not, that's not our end tempo. Something similar to this. That could be your end goal tempo, or maybe even a bit faster. What I do in the right hand is I play always alternating between P and M, so thumb and middle finger. You could also do alteration between I and M in the upper voice. For my hand, that's a bit confusing. I prefer to do P and M always. And I get by also with doing that faster. For example, this gives me a good example. I mean, it's not octaves, but it's the same with the right hand. Asturias. I know there are people who do it P, M, P, I. When I have to think about it, I get kind of also confused with the left hand, so I would do PM. And I get by with making that quick enough. I don't need that tempo, but if I wanted to, with regards to the right hand with P and M, I could do it only with P and M. If alternating between I and M there, it's better for you, by all means, please do it. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know which of Sor's etudes is your favorite, and also which of these ones you like the best. Is it the ones with thirds, sixths, or octaves? And also, do you practice intervals regularly? Let us know. We'll see you in the next one.